welcome back to the next video. Thank you to everybody who watched the last one. I know it's just a lot of my friends, but I'm really glad that you guys watched it. I really enjoyed making it, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video this week. This week, I'm going to be doing book recommendations, some books that I've read, and books that I'm looking forward to reading this upcoming year. If you guys didn't know, I have a decent amount of books that I read. I mostly read romance, fantasy, and some fiction. I have read nonfiction, but not as many. And I just wanted to share some that I think would be really good to read in 2025 or even this month in January, and just let you guys know some of my favorites. So yeah, let's get into it. So for the first category of books that I'm going to be recommending for this year are fantasy books. Now, I have only read a few, so this is a pretty short category. I'm still kind of new to the fantasy realm. So the first book I'm going to be recommending is Serpents and Wings of the Night. This book follows two characters, Aurea and Rain. Now, the twist in this one is that they're vampires. Now, if you're into vampires, this is really a great one. I didn't think I was going to be, and then I started reading it, and it was like so fun. It's basically like the Hunger Games. It's high stakes, but Aurea is a human and Rain is a vampire. It's a really, really great book. I sped through it, honestly. If you're into that kind of stuff where you're comfortable reading about vampires, but you really love the Hunger Games, this is the one for you. I really, really enjoyed this. I believe out of 5, I gave this a 4. It was just such an enjoyable read, and I recommend it to anybody who wants to get into fantasy. For the next one on the list for fantasy, I'm going to be recommending Fourth Wing. Now, if you're on social media and you have come across books, you've probably heard of this guy right here. This is one of the best reads I think I had last year. I believe I actually read it in 2023, but it was like late 2023. But this was my first ever fantasy book, and I literally wouldn't trade it for the world. This changed my reading life. I know that sounds dramatic, but genuinely, this is so good. Again, this follows kind of a Hunger Games type thing. Not really though, there aren't really high stakes or games. It's mostly just them going through school. It's like a dragon school. So if you're really into dragons or you want to get into dragons, this is the way to go. It also has some romance in it, so if you're not totally into just fantasy, this would be a really, really good one. It follows Violet and Xaden. Xaden and Violet are just like some of the best characters I've really ever seen. There's definitely other characters and supporting characters that add into this story so well, but it's just such an enjoyable read. It looks really thick and daunting, but genuinely, this was like the fastest read I've ever been through, ever. Highly recommend this. I believe this was a 5 out of 5 for me. I loved it. Now for my next fantasy book, which it might be my favorite. I know I said Fourth Wing was a 5 out of 5 for me, but this one seriously, like I just loved it so much. The next one would be Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This one I wasn't expecting to like because it's YA, and I'm not a big YA person. So if you're looking for something mellow but still lots and lots of tension between two characters, this follows two characters, Kai and Peyton. There are also additional characters in the book that I also really, really love. It is, again, sort of Hunger Games-y. The fantasy element of this one would be that there are ordinaries and there are elites. Ordinaries are not something that the elites want to have. They don't even want them to exist, and the elites rule the kingdom. There is some romance in this one, and if you want some amazing quotes, I would definitely pick this up. This one had me on the edge of my seat literally the entire time, so take a look at this one if you ever find you need a fantasy book that you don't want to be adult. This one would be really good. Now for a fantasy book that I haven't completely read through, but I'm most of the way through, Once Upon a Broken Heart. is a new read that I picked up just a few days ago. It follows Evangeline and Jax through their story. She makes a wish. It's not going so well for her. This is kind of Disney vibes. It has like princesses and lots of whimsical gardens and all that kind of stuff. So if you want something like that, this is a really nice one that I've read so far. I haven't completed it, but so far it's sounding really, really amazing to me. Okay, so that's it for fantasy. The next category is going to be romance. It's a bit bigger just because I've mostly read romance books. That's how I kind of got into reading. But my first recommendation, which is my favorite, probably one of my favorite books of all time, I think I read it back in the fall, which was great because that's when it was based. But anybody that asks me for a book recommendation, I say this one every single time and they love it, rave about it. Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This book, for some reason, just, it does it every single time. I read it twice and I've only had it for about a year. It is just so good. It follows two characters, Macy and Elliot, and it is a second chance romance. It's a dual point of view from two different times, and then it merges into what's going on in their life and why they've come back together and what has happened in their past and why they separated. Just the whole vibe of this book is so good. If you want a cozy romance book but will literally make you sob by the end of it, this one's for you. This is so good and I will never ever not recommend this to somebody. And look how cute the cover is. It's adorable. Like, it can't get any better than that, you know? Like, it's so good. And I will never ever get over this one. So please pick this up. It's fairly short. I believe it's only 400 pages and the font is huge. So this is your guy if you want to get into romance or just into reading in general. This would be a really good one. My next recommendation is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Now, I have two of them by Abby Jimenez, but there's also a third. It's called Yours Truly. I read it. I think I loaned it to Haley, so I don't have it on me right now. But this is an interconnected world. I genuinely think this is one of the easiest reads for romance and just such a feel-good series. Honestly, I read these all within like 3 days. They're really not hard reads either. My favorite though has to be Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. If you're going to read any of them, I seriously recommend these ones. If you want to see other characters that they mentioned in this book, read the whole thing, Part of Your World and Yours Truly. But this one is just so good. It follows two characters, Emma and Justin. They don't really know each other or know of each other until some sort of silly post went out and they found something that they have in common. It is just a really nice story. It's about how the little things might mean more than the bigger things and not always grand gestures do it for somebody. I just love the way these two characters meshed and how much they care for each other. So if you really want a sweet romance, this is a really good one. I recommend reading this one in the summer or even I read it in the spring and I thought it was a great preparation for the summer. It really got me in the mood for some sun. So this is a really great one. I hope somebody picks this up. Okay, now my next one is probably one of, again, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I've read a lot of good books in the last year. But this is probably one of my favorite romance books, literally ever. Beach Read by Emily Henry. Now, this is a really popular book. I know a lot of people have read this one, but if you haven't, come on. Pick up the hints. You need to read this. It is so good. It follows Augustus in January, and it's a forced proximity romance, so they're neighbors. There's a whole backstory to why they become neighbors. It takes place in a cute small town, I think on Lake Michigan, but there's, again, so many beautiful quotes in here. I think I underlined like just a ton of them. Their story together is beautiful. They're both writers, so it's kind of nice to see kind of a bookish couple within a book. It just makes my heart so warm. And again, their story is so sweet, and both of them together, it's just such a beautiful story. They go through so much together, and there's a lot of subplots in here as well that I think are really amazing that she put them in here. I would say this is less romance and more literary in my opinion. If you're into like fiction with a bit of romance, this might be the way to go for you. It doesn't show any too in-depth kind of things going on, so really recommend this one. I think I gave this one a 5 out of 5. No regrets to that. For my next recommendation, it is a series. I will be recommending the Chestnut Springs series. This is a cowboy romance with the exception of one of them. So, sort of. So, these are all interconnected. You see all the characters in every single one. The first one follows Rhett and Summer. He is a bull rider. She is the bull rider's manager's daughter. She ends up managing him. It is such a good and fun story. You just get, he's just a wild guy, and she is just really good at keeping track of him. If you're into cowboys or if you want something fun like that, I definitely recommend this series. It was really, really fun. I've never read anything like this. Again, it was a super fast read. I think it's only like 300 pages. Just a really good one, especially in the summer and the spring. You love those, if you love those Western vibes, this one's really, really good. This is the fan favorite of everybody. This one is Heartless by Elsie Silver. So this one follows Cade and Willa. This is a single father trope. So he has a son, and she's kind of this crazy sunshine, just insane person. You see her, you meet Willa in this book because she is Summer's best friend. If you want something where it is a age gap and he is it's kind of a grumpy sunshine thing going on, this one's really, really good. This one's a bit more intense than the last one, so if you were more into intense romance, this would be a really, really good one for you to read. I really enjoyed this one. I think I gave this one a 4 out of 5. It wasn't my favorite out of the series, which again, if you research this one's going to come up as everybody's favorite almost every single time, but I will get to you which one is absolutely my favorite. The next one in the Chestnut Springs series is called Powerless. This one follows Jasper and Sloane. This is a hockey romance, but also is still in the same universe as Chestnut Springs. Sloane is a ballet dancer, so if you like that dynamic, this one would be really, really good for you. I really enjoyed this character. Again, wasn't my favorite. I loved Jasper a lot, and I did really love Sloane. This one is childhood friends to lovers trope. It's kind of a slower romance. They kind of grow into it, but it is a really, really good one again in the series. I think I gave this one also a 4 out of 5, but flew through this one. This one's amazing. Now this one's my favorite. Out of the whole entire series, this one is my absolute favorite. Reckless. Hear me out. This one follows Theo and Winter. Theo is kind of this golden retriever guy, kind of crazy, super high energy. You meet him in Reckless. He is also a bull rider, so you get some more of that cowboy kind of thing going on. Winter is Summer's sister from the first one, and you kind of know her as this closed off woman, but something happens with her and Theo kind of comes around. The way it is written is just so beautiful, and I think that Theo as a character is amazing. I think he is just so thoughtful, and I think that anybody that reads this one will just love these two characters together. The last one in the series is Hopeless. Now, this one was my least favorite. It was the most anticipated, but it is my least favorite. It is Bo and Bailey. He is in the military and she is a bartender at the local bar in Chestnut Springs, and it is an age gap. It wasn't my favorite. It felt like it was kind of rushed when it was written. I still recommend it in the series though, but I don't think that this one is technically necessary to read. I think that it would be really good to finish out the entire thing, but if you don't feel like reading it, you don't need to. It doesn't really come full circle. So you could probably skip out on this one, but it is still in the series. In these three, Rhett, Cade, and Bo, they are all brothers. Jasper is sort of like their adopted brother. And then Theo is just a family friend. So they're all kind of interconnected, and I still really recommend the series. I think it is such a good and fun read, especially if you're looking for found family. You're seeing all the characters together. There's mentions of kids, parents, the vibe of the whole Chestnut Springs area. It's just so heartwarming, and it's just, I love this series with all my heart, and I will never regret reading it. So definitely recommend that one. Now my next recommendation is another series, and I'm not going to go through the specifics of all of them because most people do know this one. I recommend the Bridgerton series. I think this is a really, really good one. I know that the show is out, and you guys already kind of probably know the storyline of Bridgerton, but it is just so well written. And honestly, if you watch the show and you read the books, you will find so many different details, and you will find new love for these characters, especially in the show. I know my favorite was the Viscount Who Loved Me. This one follows Anthony, and of course you meet Kate. So definitely recommend this one if you were going to read any of them at all. Another one that I really, really loved, and I know the season kind of failed, was Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. This one was just, I loved it, and I love Penelope's story and I love Colin's story, but in the show they kind of did them dirty because the book is just so much better in my opinion. So, okay, now I don't have all of the books with me, but this is another series that I recommend. If you're into hockey romances or if you're into sports romances, I really, really recommend the Off-Campus series. It's not the best writing, okay? Like, you're not gonna get 5-star writing like you might in other authors that I'm going to recommend, but it is just, it's easy to read. The first one especially, this isn't the first one, is just so, I think it's called The Deal by Elle Kennedy. I loved it. I thought it was so good, and I just think it's an easy one to read. I think it was fun. I think it was just so entertaining. So if you're into something like that, I really, really recommend the series. It's not the best written, and you're probably not going to learn much from it, but it was fun, and it was a good escape, so also recommend that one. Another series that I'm going to be recommending, this one is definitely specific for some people. You will have to be a certain type of person to want to read these. The Heartstopper series. This is a YA, and it is a graphic novel, but it follows Nick and Charlie. They are just the sweetest couple together, honestly. I think they are so just pure together. I don't think that there is anything that I would change about the entire series. And just like the illustrations of them together are so cute. And if you're looking again for a light read, this one is a really, really good one. All of these recommendations are going to be something very light that you can probably get yourself, like just dip your toes in a little bit, just to try. But this one, if you really just don't have the time to read it all, you can finish these. I think I finished these in like 45 minutes. Like, some of them don't even have dialogue on the pages, but they're just so good. Like, Ali Oseman did an amazing job with creating a found family, a just beautiful story with these two together. I believe there's going to be a 6th one. I'm not sure when it's coming out yet, but it is so sweet, and if you just want something heartwarming, I really, really recommend that whole series. Okay, my next recommendation, I don't actually have the physical copy yet, but it is going to be, I'll insert a photo here. It is going to be Boys of Tommen series. I've only read the first 2 books, Binding and Keeping 13, but when I tell you that I live for Johnny and Shannon, I think about them all the time. There are definitely a bunch of trigger warnings. Just there are very sensitive topics in this series. Definitely take a look at those. But I rated it both 5 out of 5. I think they are both such amazing books. I think that Binding 13 was definitely better written than Keeping 13 for me personally. They're extremely long though. If you want to like not read a book that is 700 pages long, and I'm not exaggerating, then I wouldn't gravitate towards that. But if you've been reading for a little bit and you haven't heard of this series, I definitely recommend that one. It follows Johnny and Shannon and her family and his family. It takes place in Cork, Ireland, I believe, and they are in high school. It is not a YA. There's a lot of mature content, so again, definitely read some sort of warnings on those. But I recommend it every single time. He's a rugby player, she's a new girl at school. It's a sports romance, but not really. There's really, really beautiful and deep quotes in this book. They are characters that will probably stick with me forever, so definitely take a look at those. My next book recommendation for the romance category, it's a little bit more literary fiction with romance in it, is Normal People. I'm showing you guys just the spine because this is what my copy looks like, courtesy of one of my dogs. But luckily all of these beautiful annotations that my friend Haley made in the book are okay, and they all survived. But this book follows Connell and Mary Ann. They live in Ireland. There is a show adaptation which is just so amazing, so definitely recommend if you read the book to watch the show, or vice versa, but definitely read the book at some point. They kind of grow up together. It starts when they're in high school and then goes up until when they're in college. They have a relationship that is pretty complicated, and they go through all of these different events in their life throughout these years, but still kind of stay friends, or they're in a relationship together. The point of this book is that there's a lot of miscommunication, so if you're not super fond of miscommunication between 2 characters, I wouldn't recommend this one. But again, it is such a great story, and I think that the reason behind this book is just so beautiful, and it's also really short. I believe it is just short of 300 pages. It's only 280, so definitely recommend this one if you were to ever get around to something that's not super heavily romantic but has romance elements, and the characters are just beautifully written. The next category I'm going to be showing is sort of like a mix of different books that I have on my shelves that I've read or that I've heard about that I want to recommend. So I haven't read this one, so I'm hoping to read it this year, and there's a reason why I haven't read it, but it is The Housemaid's Secret by Freida McFadden. This one I've heard such good reviews about. I'm just such a scaredy cat, so I'm just holding off until I feel like I'm gonna read this in the summertime, because it seems like something that I need people to be around me for whenever I get to it, because I know I bought it during spooky season and Halloween, but I just can't bring myself to read it with somebody else. But I do have it on my shelves, and I recommend it to people because I've heard such good things if you're into thrillers. But I'm really hoping to get to this one this year as well. I know they're making it into a movie soon. I think Sydney Sweeney is in it. I think a few other people are in it that I know, but really looking forward to this one. Now, another book slash author that I'm hoping to get into this year is Fredrik Backman, and I Have a Man Called Ove. I've heard such good things about Fredrik Backman. I know that he has some really good stories, and I think it's based in Pittsburgh, so that will be really interesting. I heard that his stories are just so beautifully written, and kind of tap into people's stories that you wouldn't really expect or aren't really written about. So really, really looking forward to this one and hopefully getting this read on my shelf. Another author and another book that I've had on my shelf for quite some time is The Women by Kristin Hannah. I've heard amazing things about Kristin Hannah. This is just the first book that I really heard about. I know it takes place in the Vietnam War. It is a fiction story, but it's based on historical events. So I really just want to tap into that. I think it would be such a moving story to read instead of my normal sort of light reads. So hopefully I get to this one this year. It is a pretty thick read, so I'm gonna need some time on this one, but this author, I've heard amazing things, or have had a ton of recommendations for her, so hopefully I get into this. I also am going to be recommending this to people because if you're into something like this, like a historical fiction based on true events, I heard that this is the way to go. The last thing I wanted to say in this video is I can't recommend a Kindle enough. If you haven't gotten a Kindle and you want to get into reading, this is just such an amazing way to easily have a book on hand all the time. I have this cute case from Etsy that has my initials on it, and I mean, I'm reading right now. It is just, it's so amazing. I have so many books on here and you can get them for free. You can download them for a cheaper price through Amazon. So if you want to get into reading but you don't want to carry a book around with you everywhere, this is so amazing. It's a little library right in your hands. So definitely recommend a Kindle. That's all I'm going to have for my book recommendations. I hope you guys really enjoyed this one. Don't forget to subscribe and like and comment. If you have any other ideas for videos, I would love to hear them, or if you have any recommendations for me for books as a reader, please put them down in the comments. I love to hear about that type of stuff. And if you have any feedback about anything, please let me know. I really want to just, anything helps. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I can't wait to film the next one, and I hope you guys get to reading some of these books. Thank you, bye.